and welcome to Saron Things, a pop culture podcast where we laugh our way through this week's trending topics. I am your host, Saron. How do you diddly do? I should really think about how I am diddly doing before I ask that question, because I think I'm doing well. I went to a work dinner. It started off as a work dinner, and we decided it was no longer a work dinner after a certain amount of time. Anyways, everybody ended up going to a different bar. I think they're at the Willard. I don't know. I really wasn't paying attention, but I ended up back here because I love this bitch. And by this bitch, I mean you. I actually look forward to talking shit with you guys, or talking shit at you guys. Every week, I had a bunch of wine. I'm not going to lie, before I got here. And while I'm not having dirty martinis with my colleagues, I have continued the party with a glass of Pinot Grigio. Please go and gather your own. The thing I love about podcasts is I never know when you guys are listening to this. It could be on your car ride to work, from work. Then I definitely do not think that you guys should go get a drink or like a roadie or whatever. No. But if you're at home and you can get a glass of wine and it won't negatively impact your life, and you don't have something else to do, a child to tend to, a paper to write, a memo to send, an email to attend to, then please grab a drink and let's hang out for an hour. So how am I doing? My dad is in the hospital again. If you guys do not recall, several weeks ago, he got sick. He got COVID, and that required him to go to the hospital. They diagnosed him. They gave him his antibiotics. They thought he was doing much better. They sent him to a nursing home, because I guess that's what they do when you are older and you're like a fall risk, and you need to have like nurses watching you whilst you're getting better, instead of just giving you the medicine and assuming that you'll handle it on your. Anyways, so he's been at a nursing home, and we have been watching him for the past 2 weeks. And when my dad is in the hospital, or when my dad is in physical therapy or rehab, he's never alone, ever. He has a roommate, and there's like a dividing curtain, and his roommate is this older gentleman, of course. And I have no idea what his ailment is, and I'm sure he's a lovely man, but he never has any guests there. He never has anybody there to check on him. And my dad, he couldn't get alone time if he wanted it. He can't find the second for himself. I'm sure if the man could mobilize and untether himself from us, he would, but he's quite literally never alone. And his daughters have like busy careers where travel is involved. One of them is a surgeon. Like, my mom always spends the night there, and she's like bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and just seems not thrilled about it. Like, she doesn't obviously want to be there, because being there means that there's something wrong with her husband, but she's just thrilled every second he's breathing, and every moment of positivity he shows, like any action, any progression, she like lives for it. It's her drug. So she's bright-eyed and bushy-tailed almost at all times. And then when she has to go to work, then one of three of us, there are four of us, four dedicated loving daughters, but there's only one of us that has children. And we understand what having children means, is like you have to tend to them regardless. One of them's basically a little baby. I guess she's like a toddler. But my sisters Helen, Judith, and I, we're single ladies with disposable income and love our dad. So we are more than happy to take care of him. Not only financially, which my other sister is more than happy to do as well, even though what she needs to use her money for is a lot deeper than us. She has like to pay for people's lives and such. And I have lives to care for too, but it's not the same. Certainly not the same amount of cost. But we try to leave her out of as much as possible when it comes to his health and the time and financial implications of it. Isn't that the beauty of having like multiple siblings for? We can absorb each other's ups and downs and lefts and rights. And sometimes you can give 10%, sometimes you can give 90%, sometimes you can give 70%. Like it's off, as many people describe like marriages or whatever, being siblings that are in charge of your parents aging and how they're taken care of and how they live out those final decades of their lives. It's very similar. I know my sister, the one with the children, would literally do backhand spring into a vault under tuck, head toe, mistletoe, bubonic plague if we asked her to. She would give every dollar if she needed to, for sure. But luckily she doesn't need to, because she has 3 sisters who don't have children to take care of, who have fabulous jobs and are more than happy to do what they got to do. And also my sister who has the babies, her father just passed away, her biological father. Oh, yes. So I've mentioned this before, but if you're new here, I am the youngest of 4 girls. The one that's closest to my age is 10 years older than me. That's the one with the babies. And we are my mother's only children. The oldest and the second to oldest are my dad's only children. And together we make a foursome that can never be fucked with. Her father has recently passed away, Daniel. I don't know if I've said this before, and I can say this freely here because I know that my dad won't ever hear it. But when we first moved to this country, my sister's father, Daniel, is the one who sponsored us coming here. My mom tells this very funny story, or like cute story, about how I am the reason why we got the visa to come to America. They had tried over and over again, and my mom had gotten her visa approved to go to America without me. And I was only 2 at the time. So she was not trying to do that. And we got an appointment with some officer at the embassy, the United States Embassy in Ethiopia at the time. And apparently I grabbed some chocolate that I had stored away somewhere. And I offered to him and I was like, "Sir, what if I give you this? If I give you this chocolate, can we make it work?" I started speaking very young. A little over 1 year old, I was speaking like full sentences. That is weird. Is that creepy? It sounds a little creepy. I just imagined a 1 year old speaking sentences to me, and that is a little unsettling. Okay, so I offered him some chocolate. I hopped up on his desk, nanny style, like a real Fran Fine, and was like, "Hey, how do you feel about some chocolate? What if we do a tradesy? I give you a chocolate, you give me a visa." And he was like, "Cute. All right, you can take your child with you to the United States." And it's funny because maybe I shouldn't talk about this because these motherfuckers are talking about deporting American citizens. I've been a citizen since I was 10 years old. And I have never been in any legal trouble ever in my life, knock on wood. I can't imagine how I would get in any legal trouble, as I don't enjoy leaving my home. Allegedly, based on my mother's point of view, my cute little song and dance worked, and we ended up getting the appropriate visas that got us to the United States. So whilst my dad is getting physical therapy at this nursing home, he's sharing this big room with a man, and there's like a dividing curtain, and he's on the side with the door. So I have to walk past him every time I walk into the room to see my dad. And he never has anyone there with him. And I've heard that nurses and CNAs try not to judge the children or like the loved ones of the patient because you never know what happened in their life. And then you can also not judge the patient too harshly for not having any visitors, because you never know what happened in life. You really absolutely never know. And also, I guess as a medical worker, I would imagine that all of that has to be thrown away and not at all part of the calculus when it comes to treating a patient of any sort. But that doesn't stop me, a lay person, from looking at him and being a little sad, thinking about how he sees my dad with these young, busy women going out of their way to make sure to ask about every single thing that's happening with him, make sure he is quite literally never alone, that he is never confused, never feels upset. Like, there is no universe in which my father will ever feel like he has been abandoned or feels alone ever in life. I would rather burn the entire world down. And my mom said this fucking crazy thing a couple weeks ago, where when I spent the night in his hospital room, she showed up out of nowhere. Okay. I arrived to relieve my sister, and my sister left, and I was with my dad for 30 minutes, and I was just sitting there staring at him, watching him breathe, and she walks in and she was like, "I just can't believe you were here. I can't believe you showed up." And I understand that context is everything. And the context is, are you a flighty bitch? Do you not show up when your dad is struggling, when people are sick and hard moments? That's not true. I show up. Okay. I have boundaries, but I will always show up in these situations. My dad's sick. Obviously, I'll show up. And I have always showed up in his sickness, even when my mom has tried to exclude me from it. The only times I haven't shown up is when my mom was like, I think she sees me as the youngest and the baby. I'm 34, mind you. It is what it is, but I think my sisters have gotten a lot better in viewing me as like a normal person, equal, and not just like a baby they have to take care of. Like when we all go out to dinner, I can also give you my credit card and it will work, and we can all just do this together. It's taken a while for them to accept, but I think we've got in there. And we take the responsibility of our father very seriously. He was a good dad. We're going to be good kids to him. We love him so much. He's perfect, flawless, gorgeous. Nothing in the past can be changed. So I think that when you come to this point with your parents where I must be involved in your well-being and making sure that you have everything that you need, that you have to either choose to let go of the bullshit or the resentment and the whatever you have from your childhood when they were responsible for you, or you have to let them go, because the responsibility is too great for you to do it with resentment. Because when I go and see my dad, I am seeing him with a smile on my face. I would rather die than him see a moment of resentment. Do you know how hard that man worked to make sure I got everything I ever wanted ever in life? Literally ever. He was born in on a coffee plantation. Mind you, it was his father that owned the coffee plantation. But still, getting to the United States, to get to the point where his daughter is here living as a yuppie in Washington, D.C. with a great apartment, worrying about her 2 cats and a Yorkie, right? The amount of work that went into making sure that I have this life it boggles my mind, because I know I don't have that in me. Or maybe I do. I guess you never know until you're tested. I am a petty bitch. And I am very what does it mean when you want to keep yourself preservation? I have a great sense of self-preservation, and I know how to avoid the landmines the older I get. When I was younger, girl, the fact that I'm alive is insane. I was just recounting a tale. It's like one of those stories that you remember, like a certain tidbit that relates to what the person was saying. You're like, oh yeah, I this before. And as you're telling the story, you're like, wait, should I be telling this story? Oh no. Oh no. As the words are coming out of your mouth. But here I'm going to do this on camera recorded. There was once this gentleman when I was, I guess, like 22 or 23 max. As if that's like a young babe, old enough to know better. Anyways, he was a bartender, and he and I worked together at some point. He was bartending at this place that was close to where we had worked together before in the past. And he invited me to hang out and have a drink. And at that point in time, I was incapable of just normally drinking. I could not find my limit. The limit doesn't exist. The limit doesn't exist. Okay? I'm fucking Katie Heron. The limit was nowhere. And I would get so uncomfortable, so fucking stressed out all the time. And the only thing that would allow me to escape was the alcohol. But as I get older, I think, why not just not go? Why just not put yourself in these positions if you're unable to handle them and the only way that you can deal with them is getting so fucked up that you can barely even remember what happened? When I was in like my early 20s, late teens, maybe even, I was chasing a feeling that was exhilarating and made me feel alive and made me feel like there was more exciting things to be had in this world than what I was used to. And that married with the discomfort of being who I was and where I was. And to be honest, I had a pretty lovely experience in terms of how I was embraced in college. I never really struggled socially, but I don't think I was aware of what that meant. I wanted to be accepted. I wanted to be a part of something that made me feel like I belonged. And it's so funny thinking about it in that way because I went to these small private schools my entire life where that wasn't really an issue. Like making a name for yourself was easy given there were only 20 of us and I was always the only Democrat. So obviously I stood out. And I would say big fish, small pond, but I wouldn't, there were plenty of other big fishes. There are plenty of girls that were in my class and boys actually that are incredibly impressive, brilliant, like very smart, remarkably intelligent young people. The majority of them ended up being physicians, and then we have our economists and political strategists. It's so funny because the guy that I dated in high school, let's call him Ryan, a non-biblical name that doesn't apply to anyone I know. I don't think I know a Ryan. I have never met a Ryan. Anyways, Ryan was the exact opposite of me. He was an aggressive Republican, very sporty gentleman. He had gone to our high school since he was a little babe. Since he was in elementary school, it was one of those schools that went from kindergarten, maybe preschool, all the way up to 12th grade. And he started at the beginsies. We started out not liking each other very much because I have been the same forever. I've been a mouthy broad who was very outspoken about my political beliefs and that I was a raging Democrat from the jumpsies. They actually had to make a rule at my school after I started a couple months into it that you have to profess to be an evangelical Christian. You have to at least go to a service at that church once a week. And I don't know if I don't think that there was anything specifically mentioning partisanship, but those two things were very much directed at me, because had those been a requirement when I was signing up to go there, it wouldn't work. Because what the fuck are you talking about? One of my best friends in my childhood, her name is Johanna. We used to do this thing called chapel every single week, where we would go into the chapel, one of two, and someone would speak. It could have been the pastor of the church. It could have been a pastor of another church or a pastor's wife, whatever. And we'd sit there together and listen to whatever the fuck they have to say, and we should be taking notes. Anyways, Johanna and I obviously would sit next to each. Girl, should I be using your name? She is brilliant, a lovely writer for Vanity Fair. Creative, stunning, gorgeous, hilarious, perfect. All the things. The story I was telling. So we would be sitting in chapel. We have to take notes. We had to turn those notes into our Bible class. So once a week, we'd have chapel on Wednesdays. Monday and Fridays, I believe, we would have a Bible class instead of chapel. And we would have to give over our notes to our Bible teacher. How the fuck did I pass that? Anyways. And I guess she would usually rip out the notes we were passing back and forth while we were sitting in chapel together, pretending to pay attention to whatever that bitch was saying. She usually ripped it out, but she left it in. And mind you, this was her notebook. It said her name on it. It was in her handwriting that matched up with every single page in that notebook and in every other piece of writing that was available to this man before calling us in. And I said us, correct, because he called us both in. She accidentally handed it in. Our Bible teacher ended up giving it to the headmaster. What the fuck was he called? Whatever. He brought us both into his office and was just like, what the fuck is this? And I was like, what? And he pulled up the book and I took it from him. And I looked at it and I read it and I started cracking the fuck up. I was like, dying. Mr. Fender, he knew the second I started laughing that he had made a grave mistake. And I said, but why am I here? Because I don't know, what the fuck did I have to lose? At that point, I didn't do anything wrong and I was just curious. And he had nothing to say. Johanna eventually piped up and she was just like, I'm sorry. Oh, and what did it say in the book? She called one of the pastors an asshole, one of the visiting. Brother Barr is a dick. Brother Barr is an asshole. Brother Barr something. It was good because I remember the cackle. And like I laughed the whole time. It was such a fun fucking time. She got one or two demerits. She wasn't a problem child. Like she's perfect little angel. Bad at science, but otherwise fabulous at quite literally everything. But I was like the little devil and they brought us in together and I wasn't the one who did anything wrong, which should have been obvious given all of the context clues. But what a good time. How did we get here? Did you know that I have a song for my cats? It's a very important song in my household. You're a prisoner, oh yeah, prisoner, you're locked up. Raw. I'm going to need to look at this list of where we're going to finish. Oh, the reason why I brought up my father in the first place, this man, he's doing much better, but as he is sick in the hospital, he's on a puree food diet. He can barely speak. He's weak as fuck. Nary an electrolyte to be found in the man. My mother asks me for some reason about Henry's whereabouts for the weekend. And I tell her, oh, Henry's going to be with my ex. And I'm just now deciding that I don't want to say my ex's name. So let's call him Charles. I told her that Henry would be with Charles. And she seemed a little perturbed. Which is very funny because she knows how temperamental I am. So any feeling that she chooses to show to me is a risk that I won't respond positively. And if you're going to call me a cruel, crazy bitch, you don't understand the context of our relationship. She is insane, and I must keep her at bay in order to continue having a good relationship. Right? Because she has a lot of opinions based on a lot of toxic shit. And I've had to have a lot of therapy in order to remain a normal human in spite of that. So, anywho, I haven't told my parents the details of our breakup. And if you're unfamiliar and are new here, I got out of an 8-year relationship approximately a year ago. Almost exactly a year ago, actually. I moved into this apartment a year and a month, 13 months ago. I have not been in contact with him in any other capacity other than like my dog, because it is my dog and he sees my dog at his leisure. But I also know after the fact that we got it solidified that you have no jurisdiction here and this is my creature and you will see him at my leisure, I am now comfortable saying, okay, yeah, he's your dog too, because he's his dog. We got him together. If you try to use this against me in a court of law, Charles, I wish, you know what? Try me. Do it. Okay. Let's get into some pop culture things. I'd like to start with the fact that Blake Lively was just named one of Time's top 100 most influential people under the Titans category. And I would like to remind everybody that we've heard the word Titan alongside Blake Lively before. And that was in her text messages to Justin Baldoni when she referred to her husband, and I believe Taylor Swift, allegedly. It was redacted, but one can imagine, because she did describe the redacted person as a singer, as titans of their industry, and she wanted to be one of those as well. I don't know. I got a little tee-hee from that. I understand what the point of her being on this list is for her, and all of these lists it's a lot of PR. Just sexiest man alive. Whoever's PR team does the best job of rallying for them to get that position does. And a lot of people get asked and told no, I refuse the honor. And there are a lot of people who want it. And anyways, her being on this list means something. Like, what would she gain from being on this list other than like just a simple accolade along the sides of all the other very empty ones that you receive when you're like a mediocre famous actor? This one, I would say, is a little like a kind of a dangerous move, not on Time's part, because I'll remind you that Adolf Hitler was Time's Man of the Year in 1930 something. So they're just coming at it from a factual perspective. Like, who is in people's brains, who was on everyone's minds. I don't think it's like, oh, she's great. In fact, the fact that she was put under Titans makes me feel like they were being like just like slightly shady. But we must discuss the fact that the person that wrote the blurb that went alongside her naming as one of the Times 100 was Sherilyn Eiffel. And she is the former president and director counsel of the NAACP Legal Defense and Education Fund. She held that role between 2012 and 2022. And you're never going to hear me speak ill of Sherilyn Eiffel. You simply are not. What she says, I think, comes from the best place possible. And I full stop, 100% believe that people are capable of showing different parts of their personalities to different people. You can call it manipulation, and sometimes it fucking is. But inherently, I think that people often take account of who a person is, what they can offer, and their level of power in your relationship. And who and how you present yourself often depends on the answers to those questions. To me, people who display those characteristics and that's how they move around people shows that they're incredibly insecure and calculated. And being calculating is not the same thing as being shrewd. Because being calculating means that you are trying to trick people and you're making a plan to get over on someone, but it doesn't necessarily mean that those plans are smart and that you succeed and they're well planned out or any of those things. You can be stupid and sneaky. Just a reminder. Having a former president of the NAACP Legal Defense Fund write your blurb for your Times 100 placement is calculating. For sure. Absolutely. It is. What did Sherilyn write? Let me actually read it because I think that should be important. Okay, this is what Sherilyn Eiffel said about Blake Lively in her Times 100 piece. I don't know the Blake Lively of the red carpet or the Met Gala. I've never watched Gossip Girl. But the Blake Lively I know is a philanthropist and a student of our country's most intractable problems. She and her husband, Ryan Reynolds, reached out in 2019 to make a contribution to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I'd been getting a few of these calls as our work fighting against voter suppression and police brutality was receiving national attention. I'm always curious about the kind of research famous people do before they make that cold call to offer their support. The ones I have remained in relationship with are those who, like Blake, really did their homework. I admired immediately her curiosity and her sincere work to understand the conditions that shape this country. I remember an early conversation in which she expressed frustration that so much of our nation's history was not a part of the instruction she had received as a child. Her commitment to filling those gaps and becoming the most fully informed and prepared citizen is what I appreciate most about her. Blake is a serious person. She's a risk taker. And she's committed to moving this country forward for her children and for mine. Eiffel is a civil rights lawyer, it says in closing. So, like I said before, in the context of who Blake Lively is and who she needed Cheryl Eiffel to be for her, in the context of how they were introduced in 2019, which was because they were Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively were apologizing for their plantation wedding. And they said the right things, for sure. It was a mistake. It was disgusting. It was a horror. I thought it was just, we looked at it as a Pinterest venue, but it was really a nightmare upon Elm Street horror psycho situation, terrible people shouldn't be getting married there. That was the moment where they first interacted. And it was Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds trying to get on the right footing with people who were taking aim at them for their poor decisions in the past. And as time goes on, obviously the context of the relationship with Sherilyn Eiffel is going to reflect that. The only context in which she knows them are the people who reached out to her after the fallout for their plantation wedding and handed her a big fat check, right? They stayed in contact with each other. And Sherilyn says that is different than other people she's interacted with that were in the same situation. And I think that should hold some weight because I have no reason for it not to hold weight. She's done everything in her life to make sure that her words mean something, and they do mean something to me. That being said, just because Blake Lively is capable and Ryan Reynolds are capable of presenting themselves to be decent when it comes to their interactions with a person whose endorsement is incredibly important, does that change the way I view them? No, not necessarily, because I was one prior to this whole Baldoni situation who had gone through that cycle of what the fuck, they got married on a plantation? Gross. Not fucked with them, heard their apology, saw the actions that they took, not only the donations, starting initiatives within Ryan's company to help financially disadvantaged children have access to careers within the entertainment industry that they otherwise wouldn't be privy to or have access to. And they didn't seem to shy away from acknowledging how horrific that idea was to celebrate something at a place that just represented terror and horror. I did respect that because I didn't know much else about them as people. I hadn't dug in deeper prior to this, and I never really paid very much attention to Blake Lively, especially after Gossip Girl. She really hadn't done anything particularly interesting, in my personal opinion. Do I believe that Sherilyn is not up to date with the details of the case? Sure, I don't. I actually do not believe that she is. But do I think that she has bigger fish to fry? Fuck yeah. The biggest. She's got some whales to catch. There are other things to be paying attention to other than Blake Lively's legal actions against a potentially innocent man. I just don't want anyone going at Sherilyn Eiffel for her writing this. I don't. It is fully plausible that the only context in which she knows Blake Lively is positive. They met in the context of her apologizing for something and wanting to be better. That is a situation that can be looked at individually, standalone. But how she has behaved on this set, if it ends with us and her movements legally and publicly afterwards, can be evaluated separately. And that's what I intend to do and I will continue to do. And that has no reflection on Sherilyn Eiffel's endorsement of Blake Lively. Truly. Next topic. The Valley hath premiered. I want to start off by saying the first episode of The Valley season 2 was incredible. But the first thing that needs to be said is I don't trust Jax Taylor for anything. Okay. And everything I say from here on forth has to be seen through the lens of Jax. I believe that Jax Taylor is incapable of telling the truth. I think he's incredibly insincere, and I think that he's a sociopath. I am not a licensed medical professional and I cannot actually diagnose someone, full stop. But I can behave accordingly as if I feel as though someone should be diagnosed with something. And that's how I shall proceed to talk about Jax. He's a sick man. He's a sick man. He shouldn't be around us normies. We're just trying to survive. Anywho, okay. When Jax said, what guy wouldn't respond the same way I did after I found out those text messages? He's referring to the text messages from Brittany's iPad that was with Julian, I think that was the man's name, where he flipped a table and hurt her and bruised her. And his thing was, yeah, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. But what man wouldn't have responded the same way? Literally every man. Most men. All the men that I know. The men that aren't in prison. What do you mean? I don't think any of the men on the show, even Jesse Lolly, I don't think he's bruising a bitch. So that's just all you. You're evil. You're pure. Okay. So this brings me to this next point where I've decided to cut Brittany some slack. All right. If I was her, I would be so fucking nervous that people were going to not have any time for me. They would say, you knew what you were fucking walking into, right? Jax has been Jax forever. He has been a shithead since the dawn of time, and he's worn it on his sleeves. No one was hiding the fucking ball. And you know what? Valid criticism. Valid fucking criticism. Because if there's one thing that's been consistent about Jax, it's his horror. It's all of the bad things about him. He might be evil. He lies compulsively. He cheats frequently. He doesn't have much empathy or sympathy. He doesn't really comprehend or value other people's emotions. He is a hedonistic, psychotic fuck. That's just been so consistent for so long. He's a sociopath. He's cruel. His substance abuse. It's like his just like heinous behavior. And she has to know that is who he is, because she has absorbed the brunt of that shit for her whole entire time with him. No one is more knowledgeable about the fact that Jax is a fucking psychopath and the worst than Brittany Cartwright. Right? She chose that, and that's what we've judged her for so long. But guess what? Now that she's divorcing him, that doesn't rid her of having to deal with him. He's now a barnacle stuck to her fucking side. He is a shackle upon her ankle, dragging her to the bottom of the ocean. He is the motherfucking punishment. His existence, having to deal with him no matter what. If God is good, dealing with him for the next 14 years period, that's enough. That's enough. I don't need to bring any more pain onto her, because what else am I going to fucking... We can't undo this anymore. We can't make any changes. And I wouldn't, nor would she, because guess what? We have Cruzy. And apparently having that baby makes all this crazy shit worthwhile. Slay to that. I can't imagine, but slay to that. But also, even though I can't imagine, I also do understand, because when I watched Brittany in her like horror situation with Jax, I never think, oh God, rewind and undo it. And oh my God, if only. Never. I think, oh, at least you got Cruz. At least you got Cruzy. And there's no point in looking back, because here we have this perfect little thing that is a delight. I've been thinking about the ethics of having children a lot lately, and not necessarily because I'm like, oh, do I want to have kids or not? Because I do. I know that I want to have kids, and I know at the end of the day, if I want to have a kid, there's nothing that can stop me from doing so. Even if it's just like adopting, I can certainly take care of a child on my own. So it has nothing to do with finding a partner. But my question is, like, how ethical is it to bring a person into this world without their consent? I know it sounds so fucking crazy, but that's just like at the root of my thought about procreating, because I think that having a child is one of the few things that you do for its intrinsic value. Can you steward a life and give them the circumstance and the environment and the nurturing that they need to become like good, conscientious people that will bring good into the world and not darkness? But you don't know how your child is going to turn out. You don't know what the fuck they're going to inflict on the world. And that's just like this tiny part of my fear. You also don't know what's going to be inflicted upon them in this world. And you're just kind of like leaving them there to experience whatever. And I know this whole antinatalism, there's this idea that those questions don't even start until life exists and it's born. But no, if someone doesn't agree to be here and they don't agree to the terms of existing on this planet, what is your argument? What do you say to them? If a child looks at you and says, I didn't want to do this. You literally brought me here to do this thing that I didn't even ask to do, which is work and live and take care of myself and whatever. I don't want any of this stuff. What do you say to the kid? I made this choice, so you have to do this. It's such a hard thing, because no matter what, the idea is you want to get born. Being born is a gift. Is it? Staying alive is a fucking gift. And living a lovely life while you're on this planet is a gift. But getting here is an arbitrary choice, often made by people who don't understand the gravity of what they're introducing someone to. And you're only supposed to, the way I see it is, if you feel as though you can steward a life, care for them, and nurture who they are and direct them in a path that creates the most like healthy, centered, conscientious, contributing member of society who wants to produce more good and wants to produce no harm, but that's inevitable. That's the thing. And I think I can do that. No, I really think I could do that. I think I could raise great kids. And also, I think that I desperately want to have daughters. Okay. If I could have the exact same situation as what I was raised with, minus like the gap between me and my sisters being so big, instead of 10 years, maybe I'd make it like 5 or something. But all girls is the dream. It's the fucking dream. Thank God Zach got a haircut. That's all I got to say about that. Thank God for that phase. Okay. I think the way that Jesse described his relationship with his girlfriend. Okay. So Jesse, I'm going to agree with Jesse once and leave it where it lies. And he described his relationship with his new girlfriend as Michelle was someone who was really passive in their relationship and just let him do his thing, and allowed the resentment and anger to build up so much that when it got to its breaking point, there was no hope of getting it back together. And allegedly, this new woman that Jesse holds a mirror up to him immediately and is just, oh, this is unacceptable. I'm out if you don't fix this XYZ, who's a very direct confrontational person. And fair, I think that's actually fucking fair. I don't believe that there was any kind of misunderstanding in the beginning of the relationship. I am sure that Jesse presented himself as someone who would willingly wake up with their child in the night and look at their partner and be like, hey, would you like to sleep? Like, you haven't slept in nights. Are you sure you don't want me to pick I know you work too. So like, I might hop in there. Expecting that of your husband. It's not having to tell your husband to do that. I understand how it could feel insulting. But that's just two different personalities and how they handle the same conflict. And it feels ridiculous having to tell a man to take care of his child. And that's reasonable. It's reasonable to look at a man who is in the same house as a child who has a need and have to tell them what to do, since it's your first child as well and you've never. I can't imagine the rage I would feel. What do you mean? And if they tried to act like they were doing something special, some crazy, celebrate me because I'm taking. I can't imagine. I quite literally cannot imagine. The second I saw my partner being congratulated for taking care of his own child is the day I have nothing. I have no bargaining chips. I have nothing. It's the day that I just sit there with my jaw agog on the floor. Okay, anyways. One thing I will say is that I do not like the way that Mia is like pressuring Danny or whoever, that voice actor, little man with the 2000s haircut, about having children. He seems like a nervous breakdown, really waiting to happen. And I hear what she's saying about, these children have ruined my body and I just want to get this all out of the way so I can go get my BBL and live in motherfucking peace. Not BBL, but get my mommy makeover and live in peace. I feel her. I fucking feel her. Like, I'm not going to spread out having kids over fucking 20 years. All right. I want to look tight and fit as a fiddle. I want to have all of my goodies at my disposal while the goodies are upright and tight. I get it. First time I heard it, I was just like, calm the fuck down. You've had 14 babies in 2 years already. Just like, you don't want to breathe. And then I heard what she was explaining, and I was like, no, I feel you. Because that has to do with autonomy, right? You want your body to feel like your own. She wants a big family, and she wants to feel hot. And what that looks like is 17 babies in a condo. Then I can focus on my body and make a bunch of money so that you're no longer asking me about moving to Encino. I don't know what the fuck he was talking about. Fresno? Somewhere that she is like looking at as, it's giving Chino. He's from like Chino. I don't know what that means. I just know that Summer and Marissa weren't down. Janet and Kristen and Janet. Annoying, both of them. Incredibly. Kristen's speech about just apologizing without any qualifiers. That's all you need to do. And oh my God, life will get so better. Why don't you try apologizing for what you did to Faith without a qualifier, without being like, it was just a tip line. It was just a tip line. Maybe then I can take you somewhat seriously. Other than that, go fuck yourself. She's so fucking annoying. I swear to God. I feel the same, like, proportional annoyance at Kristen as I do love for Stassi for the exact same situation and how one handled it like a tacky ass trashy Charlotte Roos Birkenstock bitch versus Stassi, who really felt the terror and horror, the horror and terror of what she inflicted, hid herself away for years, came back contrite as fuck. I respect that so much. I want Kristen to have the best pregnancy, a healthy, long life for her baby, every baby she has in the future, because if she wants more, I hope she has as many as she would love, and that she has the longest, healthiest, most perfect marriage with Luke in and they get to have like multiple houses and live in California and Colorado, whatever. But that doesn't change that I think she's like full of shit and incapable of taking legitimate accountability for her fucking behavior. And so until she stops saying, I only called a tip line, it was a tip line, I didn't call the police, every time that Faith is mentioned, then I'm going to continue being a bitch to her, or about her, actually, just about her. Yeah. And I will also say, even though not a fan of Kristen, still also not a huge fan of Janet. And the fact that she, with like her full chest, was like, Kristen wants me to have a miscarriage, essentially. That shit is buck wild. That's crazy. And I don't know, there's something about Janet that feels like she wanted this for too long. She's been angling at this for a while, it feels. And she finally has gotten here, and she's like playing the part that she thinks that she should be playing. And maybe this is because I know that she's been like very good friends with a bunch of Vanderpump people for a long time. And maybe that is in the column of her being right for this life, because obviously she tracks these people. She's in this universe. Why not? But there's something about her that it just feels fake. Her interactions feel like I'm expecting them to go this way. It just doesn't, I don't know. She doesn't feel real to me. And that's that on that. Like, call me Garcelli, because that's just how I feel. Let's talk about Real Housewives of Beverly Hills Reunion Part 3. I have virtually nothing to say about this other than, what the fuck is Garcelle so upset about? What is it? What the fuck happened? She got upset on the first episode. She walked back to her like trailer or whatnot, lunch, and she hung out with Garcelle, upset, and she said all that shit about Erica. And then everyone went back after lunch. They did episode 2. Nothing remotely interesting happened in episode 2. Certainly nothing that had to do with Garcelle. And then we got to episode 3. And immediately, oh no, I'm not taking any more questions. I am not taking any more questions. I have no interest in speaking to you anymore, Andy. And every time Andy asked her a question about why she was feeling so salty, she was like, because of everything. It was like, what do you mean by everything? She's like, no, I'm just like annoyed by it all. It's all bothering me. And I don't really feel like talking about it anymore. But if you could really define it all, I'm a little confused and other people might be confused. So can you just tell us, what do you mean by it all? But it's all just annoying and I'm over it, and no one has smiled at me. What? No one smiled at you. I better hear that something crazy happened on set that we were not privy to. That someone says some crazy ass shit to you, because these reunions are meant to be a shit show. This is season 14, boo. There's no room to act confused about what might happen. And no one smiled at you. What do you mean no one smiled? Who cares? How are you? Who on the other side of you would you want to smile at you? And why does it matter so much? It doesn't make any sense to me. Nothing happened that I don't think anything happened that was so aggressive that she had to leave like that. Fully expected to see that something insane happened in episode 3 to make Garcelle walk off like that. And certainly not. Absolutely not. I felt silly. It felt overly dramatic. Quite literally, nothing happened. I don't get any grace. What the fuck do you mean? You literally just told Dorit that you, based on your gut, in addition to what we all have in public consumption, all of the details, all of PK's behavior, whatever, that you believe that he set up the robbery. That's a crazy thing to say to a person that you know. The stakes are too high. And to feel like you've been left out to dry because you verbalized those feelings and maybe expected people to be like, yeah, I also feel like it's weird. No. Who the fuck else is going to jump on that bandwagon with you? That's insane. You don't have anything concrete. You have what the fans of the show have. You have what the public has. And sure, that's enough for people on the internet, fans of the show, people who want to like gossip about it, people like me, even. But I haven't said that because I feel like that's an insane thing to allege without having any information. But had I been like, oh, maybe this is really what happened and PK set it up, I think that would have been far more reasonable for me to do than a woman who is supposed to be in Dorit's circle. Garcelle is in a different position than any of us are. I've heard someone say, oh, Garcelle acts as the audience in the circumstance. She asks the question that the audience wants to know, or she fills that role. And I think that's not something that happens naturally. You can't speak for the audience and also want to be on the inside. You listen, but you don't repeat. I really was waiting for something that mattered to happen. And absolutely nothing did. That blew my mind. And that is all for today. Thank you so much for listening to the Saron Things podcast. I will chat with you next week. If you have any questions about anything you've heard on this podcast or just want to say hello, please feel free to message me, DM me on Instagram or TikTok under Saron Things. Have a fabulous week, and I'll talk to you soon.